Welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast for leaders of growing restaurant companies looking to take their businesses to the next level. In nearly 2 decades covering restaurants, I've gained access to some of this industry's most influential decision makers, and I'm letting you in on the conversations. In today's episode, you'll hear from the founders of a Los Angeles-based restaurant and nightclub empire about how to create an exclusive experience that customers can't help but seek out, and why the human experience provided by restaurants is even more important in our AI-dominated world. John Terzian and Brian Toll are the co-founders of the h.wood Group, an LA-based hospitality group that owns restaurants like Delilah and Nice Guy, as well as nightclubs like Keys and Poppy. John and Brian first got into the nightclub business back in 2008, and they used their extensive network of celebrities and VIPs to establish their clubs as exclusive CNBC destinations. Eventually, they expanded into restaurants, and they infused their concepts with the same experiential factor that helps them stand out in busy nightlife scenes in cities like LA, as well as Las Vegas, Miami, and Nashville. John and Brian joined the podcast to talk about the importance of word-of-mouth marketing when getting a business off the ground, and about the details that you can't miss when designing a restaurant experience. In this conversation, you will learn more about why you should build your network before you even open your doors, why the less available your business is, the more your community will crave it, and why little details make a big difference in restaurant experiences. If you learned something from this episode, go follow Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave some feedback. It's the best way to get these lessons to fellow restaurant leaders. Jumping now into my interview with the h.wood Group founders, John Terzian and Brian Toll. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 5 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm sitting down with John Terzian and Brian Toll of the h.wood Group. Guys, thanks for taking some time today.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to be talking about your group, which has been around now for, I guess, 18 years. You guys founded in 2008. I want to go back to that moment because 2008, it's kind of like 2020 in my memory where I hear that year and it kind of triggers something because it was such a crazy year financially.
Mine too. Big trigger year.
Trigger year. What was the coming together of you two as partners to start this group, and how did you manage to start this in 2008?
Brian and I are both born and raised in Los Angeles. Key aspect of this. Both went to similar high schools, kind of knew each other in high school. More importantly, went to USC together. We had a lot of similar friends. We have a couple of best friends. Shout out to D. Murphy there, who was Brian's roommate and best friend in college, and was in entrepreneur school with me at USC. And we had a lot of like overlapping, but didn't really do much like that in college. I personally didn't know what I was going to do in life. Got out and Brian had a large promotion and event company called VTOL Entertainment. It was massive. I was a promoter as well, but also went to law school. I was a smaller promoter, went to law school at Pepperdine. And when I got out, I was working for kind of the first celebrity DJ AM. And he had a nightclub that I helped put together and run with his manager, Larry, and it was called LAX. And I guess technically that was the first time I started working with Brian, brought Brian in to help make it a big one with promotions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the plan was we wanted to really, I personally decided I didn't pass the bar. I couldn't get a job anywhere. Like I think I was an entrepreneur at heart and didn't fully know it then.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian always was. He had a massive company going, but was promotions. And so the idea was we go open our own, raise money. I think the important aspect was we really knew the fabric or the youth culture at the time of LA.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw, I don't think we identified it this way, but we saw a need to do a better nightlife. There was like this time where all the nightclubs that were going on were just slapped together, not much soul to it, not much service. Music even was not really anything. And so I think we saw that niche and we took a chance at it. And that was actually like 2006 when we started forming all of that. And then 2008 is when we opened our first place, basically, which, as you just successfully called, was probably the worst time in the history of the world to open.
Yeah.
So, and looking back on it, it's probably a blessing because that's when you really learn lessons during the hardest times.
Right. But if I'm thinking about that year, correctly, I mean, you still have all the millennials are kind of graduating college. They have
Yes.
discretionary income. I imagine younger people are your core demographic and they all want to go party somewhere. So were you somewhat insulated from the financial troubles of that year, or was it tough to build up an audience for the club?
I think we were actually busy looking back on it. It was our first place that we had to really bring all of our networks together. I was used to doing one night a week at this club and one night a week at the next club. And so I had like 4 or 5 different things I was working on.
Hmm.
But this was the first time we like really centralized it and made it our home. And so I don't really remember at the time thinking people weren't spending money. I think we were busy. I think our biggest issue was we really didn't know how to operate. I think we knew how to bring a crowd, but we weren't really getting them to spend money. We were happy to comp all of our friends. We were happy to comp any, whether they were A list or F list, anyone who was even remotely a celebrity. I think we were just trying to like build a brand and build the place. And we kept saying, "Oh, the money will come, the money will come." But then it was like 3 months, 6 months, a year, like the money really never came. And maybe that is due to the economy, that the spenders just weren't spending money at the time. So I think we were very busy with the right crowd. I think we grew a really good name for ourselves. I think people loved the venue. And I think people took us seriously as operators, but unfortunately, it just wasn't a huge financial success.
Yeah.
We ended up actually getting shut down by the city for being too successful. We were getting noise complaints, which we ignored. We were have customers leave the place drunk and make noise and fall over on people's lawns that lived close. And so the city ended up shutting us down.
It's kind of a compliment, I guess, to
Yeah.
to be shut down for some of those reasons. You talk about, Brian, building a brand and building a name for yourself, and again thinking 2008, you had Facebook, you had Twitter, kind of, but like I imagine, as we'll get into, social media is probably really key to your success today because so much of the nightlife scene, especially, is just about image and spreading the word. What was key then in 2008 to building the brand? How were you able to build that scene?
It was much harder back then because you had to honestly personally invite people. Like, yeah, Facebook, I think it just started, but I don't think we were like on it or using it. I think at the time you still had to like be at a university and have your university ID to use Facebook. So
Yeah.
like there was Friendster and MySpace a little bit, but I remember like physically texting hundreds and hundreds of people with the flyer, or just texting saying, "We're opening a new place, come out." And like that was how you promoted back then. I even
Pass out
remember
flyers.
I used to pay people to hand out physical flyers on the street for a nightclub, which seems like archaic at this point,
Yeah.
but that's how it worked back then. There was no like mass emails. There was no like post a flyer on Instagram and hope people come. The world has truly changed now. So back then, like John said, we grew up in LA, which I think was a key piece of it. And so we would invite high school friends, college friends. My first job out of college was at Endeavor, the talent agency. And so I had a little like network of assistants that I would invite, and they would invite the agency people. John, I'm sure, had law school friends. And we just had a really large networks. And so of the right LA tastemakers and trendsetters, which you can't just like make, right? That takes years and years of putting these people together.
Right.
So I think in order to make it cool, we just invited the right people and said, at the time it was SBE who really owned nightlife in LA. They had the best, biggest places. And I think for John and I, we said we have a real opportunity here to be like the local, small, homegrown type door places. We're not so concerned about who's inside and what we're not so concerned about who's buying tables. It's more about who's inside. And like we were the exclusive tightrope place versus Sam Nazarian's like massive 20 places thing. And so I think the right people appreciated what we were doing.
Yeah. All right. So then, if that first place got shut down and you didn't know how to make money, you still fast forward to today, you guys are a huge success. And I imagine you're making a lot of money. So, like, what changed? At what point did things start to pick up and you guys started to have a viable business model?
Took a while. It's a lot longer than people realize.
Hmm.
I think we saw our second place was another place in Hollywood called Las Palmas. Again, very busy. People started to recognize we were real operators. And then we had Shore Bar. We had a place called the Beverly and Shore Bar. I would say it was 2012 with Bootsy Bellows that we really started to recognize like real commercial success. Uh, right time, right place, right location. Everybody was begging to come in. Would spend any kind of minimum we were asking for, and we just finally closed Bootsy. But we had a 13-year run of a nightclub, right? And I think that was the first time where people really were talking about us in Miami and New York, and like to the point where like when you come to LA, you have to go to Bootsy Bellows. Where I don't think we had that prior. We were cool for like the locals, but I think it was at that point that we really had our name on the map.
Yeah, I don't think we knew how to operate. I think we knew how to bring the crowd, how to market, I guess, if you will. I think we knew what was needed, but we didn't know how to operate. And we had, I guess, 3 places technically, and pretty major, I guess, failure, if you will, and some time off regrouping. And I think, like Brian said, we really regrouped, and I would credit Bootsy Bellows, I guess, and Shore Bar, which was our small little bar. We had a little hybrid. We came up with this members model for locals, which is really becomes an important aspect of what we do in the future. I think those 2 places we really learned how to operate. We built it ourselves on a shoestring budgets and learned how to operate, learned how to market, learn like do all the right things. And those were real like profitable for the first time. We were like, you can't actually make money in this business and do it the right way.
Yeah. So you started nightclubs, but you now have several restaurants in your portfolio too. Tell me about the evolution into straight food service and how much you guys have tried to use some of the elements of the nightclub business and your experience in that with the restaurants that you're developing.
I think it was just sort of like a natural progression. But at the end of the day, they're sort of the same, right? You build a concept and it's all about the marketing and getting the right people there. And whether they're there for the food or the vibe or the lighting or whatever, like they're coming for a reason. And I think we got to a point where after 10 or 15 years of being solely in bars and nightclubs, we were like aging ourselves out of it, right? And our crowd was aging out of it. They wanted to hang out more in restaurants and maybe not go as crazy. And so we saw the writing on the wall and said, we need to do this now or it's going to be too late. And so the first restaurant we did was the Nice Guy in 2014. And Delilah was 2 years later in 2016. But I think it was just clear at the time. I remember our customers telling us, you guys need a restaurant, you guys need a restaurant. And we're so close with our customers. We speak to all of them, on text and phone calls all the time. So we really follow their lead. And we're lucky to have the right kind of group that follows us, that sort of has their hand on the pulse, finger on the pulse for what works and what doesn't. And so, yeah, we started with the Nice Guy. I remember a lot of people downing us at the time, saying, "Oh no, you guys are nightclub guys. You can't do both. The nightclub guys never know how to do restaurants." And I think both John and I just sort of like ignored all of it and knew we would be fine and we would figure it out and roll with the punches. But I think we really knew that we needed restaurants.
Yeah, I've noticed that just always happens in life. I don't know if that happens in other industries, but everyone's always a naysayer. When we started our first place, it was like, oh, it's hard. This business is really hard. When we started our first restaurant, it was like, you can't do nightclubs or restaurant. We're going through it now. We have 20 years of success and we're still, we're looking for our plan doing our first hotel. And everyone's like, oh, you haven't done a hotel. It's like, okay, well, watch us. That's the type of mindset we have.
Mm-hmm. Well, I imagine too, a lot of it's just people, right? I mean, because if you don't have hotel experience, if you don't have restaurant experience, you just kind of have to go find the people who do. And it sounds like you guys had a network where when you got into the restaurant space, you must have met so many people who wanted to jump into that with you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a second to find the right components. It's hard. But everything's hard. You have to really love it. I think if we didn't love this business, I do think a lot of people maybe get into it for the wrong reasons. That is not us. We've been in it for the love of the actual business since day one. And that's why I think we've lasted and are growing versus
Mhm.
others, which is a major part of it. And yeah, as the restaurant, where I really view us as a restaurant and like just overall hospitality group. It's what we are. And we've used our nightlife knowledge and skills in a positive way because we're not just a boring restaurant group, even though we have some regular restaurants in that regard. But
Mhm.
our whole thing is being able to market a certain way and have certain events and have a little bit of flavor to what we're doing.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. I mean, going back to something, Brian, you were saying, where there is a little bit of an exclusivity that you've built into, especially with your nightclubs. It seems to me, looking into your restaurants, you maybe have really used that technique with your restaurants too. There's an exclusivity to it. You've turned them into sort of a destination.
Totally.
Yeah. So, Brian, tell me about that. How do you do that with a restaurant?
Well, I think it started because John and I don't know how to cook, right? We're not we have amazing food now and we have a fantastic culinary program, but I remember at the time like we had no idea what we were doing or talking about when it came to food. So,
Mhm.
we knew people weren't coming because of that, so we had to figure out how to get people to come. And so we accomplished that by saying we will not go on open table or resi. You'll have to go through us to get in. We want to know everyone in there. We made it very hard to get a reservation. We hired the best culinary people we could find at the time and really helped to create a menu that, looking back, didn't really make sense. It was sort of Italian, but we had Taco Tuesday there. We had fried chicken Sunday. We still do have a burger on the menu in an Italian place, but at the time we're just like, it doesn't matter. People just want what they want. Let's just give them everything.
Mhm.
And so I think we did things that a lot of chefs wouldn't have done, which turned out to work. And we really like willed it to happen. We were in there every night, inviting people. We made every single person we knew do their birthday there for years. We had great
We still do.
DJs there. What's that?
I said we still make them.
Don't make them do that yet. Don won't speak to people if they do birthdays at our competitors.
This is
Uh,
true. Anyone
we
out there better listen to that.
we had the right DJs and the right lighting, and we really set the mood and did all the extra things so that the food, it had to be great, but it wasn't like people weren't coming just for that. And I think now you look around the city and it's a lot of people have copied that direction, 10 years later, where like they're dark, it's all about the lighting and the vibe, and there's so many places now. We were the only ones that had live music at the time, and now you look around and like uh, random places have singers and band, and I think they're trying to kind of replicate what we were able to do at the Nice Guy and Delilah because it worked in LA. We opened in Vegas. The Wind came and saw what we were doing at Delilah in LA and loved it and said we need this in Vegas, and it's been a massive success at the Wind.
Mhm.
Highest grossing restaurant on property there. It's a beast in Vegas.
Wow. I mean, okay, so let's get to the social media part of this because then Instagram comes into the picture, then TikTok comes into the picture. I mean, I imagine that can supercharge the business of what you guys are doing. I mean, what you guys have created is a very sensory experience, and that the visual and audible sensories, especially, you can now communicate that via social media. Once these tools became available to you, how important were those to really getting people excited about the business?
Uh, it's funny. I feel like we fought social media for a long
Really?
time, and really at first because we felt like if like we've never allowed photos at the Nice Guy or Delilah, and we always felt like if videos and pictures and things ended up on Instagram and online, it would take away like the exclusivity and like the specialness of these places. And so we were like against it. And then I think at this point you don't have a choice. The world is just digital.
Mhm.
So we now have a really good social media team and marketing team, and we come up with different experiences. We still don't allow photos, so we're
Mm.
pretty picky on what does go up there. But I think now it's changed, and we do a lot of marketing on social and emails and things. But yeah, for the longest time, I think we fought against it. I mean,
It's been critical for our events. I think even social media is almost critical for our anti-allowance of it, because everyone either sneaks in the pictures or they're outside, all the videos of outside and not being. I do think that we've done a smart job playing the long game with that. And there are nightclubs, we allow it all, and it's pretty prevalent in that regard.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, because as I understand it, you guys have a ton of celebrities who are regularly at your places, and you've created these spots to sort of see and be seen. So how do you balance sort of the social media, like be seen everywhere, with the exclusivity that you guys had kind of originally intended with your businesses? I mean, how do you do that intentionally, where you're leveraging these celebrity friends of yours, but also not wanting to get like, well, just anybody can get into this place?
I think that's the key thing. Is I think we're a group. We're not leveraging we grew, since we grew up here. A lot of our friends became pretty big celebrities, and then we met. It's like a friend to friend, and you start becoming known as the best place to take care of people. And honestly, that's why we don't allow it out there. We don't allow. We have no contacts to the press in that regard, or paparazzi in that whole world. I think our whole thing is keeping it a safe haven because it lasts longer. People think. I always look at what we do. The hospitality business is the same as the film industry. The best marketing, for the film industry to this day, and probably always, is word of mouth buzz. Always. More than billboard campaigns, more than anything. For us, it's word of mouth. So people being in there saying, knowing the right crowd being in there, that does help. And that is, we're not morons. We do understand that. But to exploit that, you won't last. And I can name you, I mean, the list would go on and on, places that really exploited celebrities and people going there, and they didn't last. They're gone. So we really try to do the opposite. We actually try to be the safe haven.
There's a lot of operators out there who we don't need to name, who like take photos with the celebrities when they're in there and post it, or call the paparazzi to say so-and-so's inside. And we literally have done the opposite. Like, John just got mad literally this week. Still, we still deal with it, where he thought that a valet at one of our venues was calling paparazzi that a celebrity was in there. John had a meltdown right now about it, because it's you can like lose it all in the blink of an eye. If a celebrity thinks that the venue is doing that, they'll never go back. And so our thing was always like, we are a safe haven. We'll walk you through the back door. We'll walk you through the parking lot. We're not going to ever call and say so-and-so is in there. Like, the people in the room will do what they naturally do and tell people, and that'll be the marketing enough.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I imagine too that kind of dilutes your brand if it's something where you are shouting this to the rooftop, so-and-so was here, that sort of takes away from that specialness of the brand. It takes away from that exclusivity.
Yeah.
So then, if I told you at the outset of this, before we hit record, I'm so fascinated by the concept of experience in the restaurant industry, especially because, if we fast forward to 2025, obviously you guys went through the pandemic and survived, and we don't need to get into that because, I've heard every story about surviving the pandemic, and I'm sure it sucked for you guys. But you made it through. But, the world that we kind of came out of in the pandemic was one where everybody thought, oh, people just want to Netflix and chill. They just want to order food on their phone. They just want to, they just want convenience, everything. And that pendulum, if that pendulum had swung that way, it really seems to be swinging back now. I mean, there's a reason why a brand like Chili's is the most exciting restaurant brand in the country. And it's because, people want to get out of their houses and go have experiences in actual places. Tell me from your perspective, because you guys are obviously on the far other end of this, in this sort of luxury fine dining side of this. How much do you feel like right now a unique experience is key to what's bringing people into your clubs and restaurants?
Yeah, look, we are as you can tell, because we're betting, but we are a very large believer on our industry being one of the few to not only last but grow during these next few decades, with the rise of AI and the rise of technology, everyone being able to get everything at their fingertips at home or where they are. I don't ever see recreating physically eating, drinking, and interacting, and listening to music, socializing, kind of all of the above, seeing people, being seen. We believe that is the core essence of what's the what we specialize in is that the social dining, live music. It's what we've done for now 2 decades.
Mhm.
And we look at every night we're open at all of our venues, in Miami, Las Vegas, and LA, and now opening in Dallas. Like, we look at each night as a moment in time for people to step in, escape, be there. And you can't, there's nothing that can match that. And so we really believe in it. And what we really, really hone in on and spend every day on is our people, meaning our team at these venues, really creating those special experiences, making
Mm.
sure the guests feel special when they enter, when they're sitting there, making the singers and the dancers that we have, or the servers, whatever, really key to have those experiences so that they come back. You know,
Right.
that's their big night. That's their night out.
I think people have so many options now. It's so easy to just sit on your couch and order Postmates from all your favorite places. So to get someone out the door, you really have to be on your A game. It can't just be good lighting and it can't just be good food. It needs to be all encompassing. Or I think at this point, people would rather stay home. They don't want to fight with traffic. They don't want to pay the prices. It's harder and harder to get people in. And so I think you have to really push all the senses, really.
Right. So it's interesting. You guys have also evolved and grown into the sports arena side of things, with a couple of locations, including I'm in Ohio. You guys opened in the
Oh,
Cleveland
nice.
Cavaliers Stadium.
Yeah.
Yep.
Caught my attention. Why? How do you create a unique experience with what you guys are doing in a place where everybody has already come for another experience, which is to watch the game? How have you been able to sort of bring your brand into an arena space?
So it started in LA at SoFi Stadium, which is where the Rams play. Actually, before that, they were at the old stadium at the Coliseum. And it's similar to what we've done in Cleveland, to where the stadium came to us and said, look, the people are already here, to your point. We don't need your help getting them here. But when they're in the stadium, we need to give them something special. Look, right? Everybody wants a special place to watch a game or a special place to go eat when they're in the stadium, and something that really sets it apart, just like a special offering. And I think a bespoke room like we did at SoFi is so interesting. We're basically on the field at SoFi. We have our Bootsy Bellows suite. So you have to have a ticket to the game, but then we can grab people down there and they can be at the field level, which like never, you really can't get an NFL experience like that. So it was a real game changer. And then in Cleveland, it was a similar situation. We got the call from the stadium saying they saw what we've done in LA. Cleveland is obviously a different crowd, but these people are season ticket holders. They wanted to do a membership opportunity to where if you have season tickets, you can pay extra to be able to eat in this special restaurant. And so it's really just about, doing a bespoke, it's not even exclusive because people are in there, but just like a bespoke special experience. And I think we are at the top of the list of people who can create that moment and really know what these customers are looking for in terms of food and design and lighting and vibe and all of that. And I think you're going to see more of that. It seems like every stadium around the country are starting to do these like one of a kind restaurants, and special rooms. I think it's more and more important.
Yeah.
I think the key is this special experience, hand holding. Everyone's looking for that next level of experience.
Right. Well, and that creates loyalty, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you guys must have people who are coming to your restaurants and clubs with a fair amount of frequency, because if you have a great experience, you're going to come back to get that again and again.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a whole Rolodex program for that where we have a whole team that's hand holding for everything, our regular guests, and that exact statement that you're making.
So you guys are ramping up growth now, and I'm curious about this. Why is now the time to ramp up growth? I mean, I just spent a couple of days in Florida with a bunch of data folks talking about how pretty much nothing's going to get better this year. 2025 was rough. 2026 is going to be, we probably bottomed out at least. That's the good news. But no huge boom in the economy or anything like that. But you guys, you've raised some money. You see opportunity globally. You're ready to grow.
Yeah.
Why is now the time for h.wood to grow and take off?
I feel like we've been growing over the last 5 years or so, right? We opened Vegas in 2021. We opened Miami 3 years ago. We've been building in Dallas for 3 years now. We have a bunch of others coming, but I think we've sort of been on this path. Look, I don't think restaurants are going away. People may spend a little bit less money for the moment when the economy is not great. But overall, people still want to get away from their problems. They still want a night out. They still want a great experience. So I don't think like restaurants in general are under threat here. So I think now is a great time to grow it. Our brand is hot. The developers are looking for what we do in a lot of different markets. And so, time to strike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that there's just too many restaurants, and so
Yes.
what you have to do is you have to stand out from the other
That's right.
restaurants in order to secure the business. And the whole definition of your guys' business is standing out from everybody else, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I personally like when people are down. So when you like exactly your statement, everyone's like, "Oh, this next year is going to be hard," whatever. That's actually when I think Brian and I are wanting to capitalize and say, "Look, we are looking on a much broader horizon. Yes, it might be the next year and a half, 2 years, still a little bumpy economy wise. The idea is stand out and then set ourselves up for coming out, the long term is what
Yeah.
our real plan is. And really staying true to who we are. I think our focus is just staying what we know best, which is this luxury, hospitality world.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, as I said, I'm really fascinated by your guys' ability to build these unique experiences. And for our audience, the audience is primarily chain restaurant operators, and from small emerging fine dining, QSR, all of the above. But everybody's trying to figure out how to stand out, how to create a great experience that can build some loyalty. So what I'm curious from your guys' perspective is, what are your tips? From what you guys have learned now doing this for 18 years in the nightclub and restaurant industry, and having built something very special that clearly people are really drawn to, what are the key things that drive a unique restaurant experience?
I'll do my part of it. There's no magic. No, there's no magic answer to that. That's the bad news. The good news is that I can't speak on everyone's individual businesses, their chains or whatever. For us, I can tell you the key thing is really knowing your guest, your customer, your guest. I think we live and breathe our venues. We have a handful of great partners, Brian and I, in h.wood, that live and breathe the venues, and then we have a large team under us that we have mentored and trained for years and years to think the way we do as far as the business, which is being hands-on, living and breathing the venue. And why I say that is because, to answer your question, to stand out, each restaurant's different. Each location, meaning each demo or each what city or wherever you're in, is different. So you have to really know that niche to stand out, and have to kind of guide. So, I'll give you an example. We've had Nice Guy for years now, right? How long? 13 years it's been open? 12 years, Brian?
14.
We noticed that Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays in the last couple years have been a lot slower. Just saturated market, 4 or 5 different, restaurants that are similar have opened. You're a little older. I think if we didn't live and breathe our venues, that could just go on. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's empty. Well, instead we do little things. So we notice, we turn to what our core is. So we're this Sinatra Italian-ish restaurant, but we've never really leaned into that. So we had a singer that sings in Italian. We called it Martini Mondays, and we leaned in on having this special silver platter with special martinis. Nothing crazy to add, nothing different. And then we added one pretty cool marketing idea, which is a guest sits down and you can roll a dice, and if you get a certain number, your meal's free, right? We don't advertise it because that's a little not like doesn't fall in line with our brand, but word of mouth gets around, and over the next X amount of weeks, all of a sudden our Mondays are packed. And who knows whether you can tie that to working or not. We did 4 or 5 different little things on that night. Word of mouth. We stayed true to our brand, but created a different experience. And it's, knock on wood, it's been working.
That's cool. Brian, what about you? What are the tips you have?
Tips to stay relevant
or to create a unique experience?
I think it's just the details really matter, right? It's not one thing, it's 20 different things, right? Like for us creating the Nice Guy, it was all about what band is it? Like why? First of all, let's do live music. Restaurants don't do live music. Every restaurant operator will say, you can't make money doing it. It's too expensive. And we said, well, we need to stand out. So let's do live music. Okay, well then what song choices are they playing, right? So go into that. How, the lighting in the place. And I think I mentioned before, opening an Italian restaurant, but having a Taco Tuesday, like it's okay to be different and try some things. And it turned out that it was a lot of those little details that got people excited for the Nice Guy. And we're constantly tweaking things and changing things. But I think it's those special little things that people actually talk about. I remember Nancy Silverton had a restaurant, Campanile on La Brea. And she, it was this fine dining, great restaurant. And then Thursday night was grilled cheese night. And I remember that because I used to go, I think it was like right after college, and it was like the greatest grilled cheeses, but it was just so different and unique. And it had like 10 different versions of a grilled cheese. It was like a croque madame and a croque monsieur and whatever, but that was her thing. And I think a lot of restaurants, don't worry about those little things. And it's not even that you need like nights like that. It's just, it's something for people to talk about, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff. Brian, John, I really appreciate your advice to the audience and your time today. Good luck in all things with h.wood. I know you got a big work ahead of you, so thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you enough. Appreciate it.
That was my interview with the h.wood Group founders, John Terzian and Brian Toll. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 5 takeaways. My first takeaway is that you should build your network before you open your doors. So one of the sort of unfair advantages that John and Brian had when they first got into the business in 2008 is they both had extensive networks around LA where they had grown up, and they had a lot of celebrities and VIPs in their network. They really relied on those people to put bodies in the space when they opened the doors to their first nightclub. And when you make a place full, especially full of people who are sharing their experiences with their friends and people who, really are important, VIP types, it inherently creates a demand for that space that other people want to be a part of. John and Brian admitted that they were not operators. It took them a few years before they really learned how to be operators. They said they weren't really even profitable back then. But what they were good at was marketing. They were good at getting the message out, creating a scene that people wanted to be a part of, and they used their network to create that. Related to that, my second takeaway is that word of mouth buzz is stronger than any other marketing. I think it was John who mentioned that word of mouth was the most important thing they could do, even more so than, having billboards or doing traditional ads or even social media, which they said later in the interview, they really kind of resisted and still kind of resist even to this day. Word of mouth buzz, especially for something like a nightclub, has been hugely important because people share their experiences, the unique experiences they have at these places. They share who they saw at these places, and it makes other people want to be a part of it. I'm sure you've experienced this with your own business, where you get a lot of customers who heard about this great new restaurant and they came to check it out for themselves. Well, this is something that Brian and John are actively using. They're being very intentional with this idea of word of mouth marketing. By creating unique experiences that customers to their businesses can't help but go share. And who are you going to trust when learning about new businesses? Are you going to trust an advertisement that is just one of another ads that you're going to see, one of hundreds you might see in one day? Or are you going to trust your friend whose opinion, you really respect and agree with? So, how can you create word of mouth marketing in your own restaurants, clubs, bars, whatever business you have? If you can really harness the power of word of mouth, it can take you really, really far, even beyond some of those other traditional marketing methods. My third takeaway is that the less available your business is, the more your community will crave it. Of course, this is playing into the exclusivity principle, the scarcity principle, the idea that the less someone can have something, the more they end up wanting it. Exclusivity is everything, especially when it comes to nightclubs. Think about all the nightclubs that, have that line stretching out the door, people trying to get in. That does the marketing for you. Clearly, something about that place is important that all these people are waiting in line to get into. This is the business that John and Brian are in, but they're extending it now into the restaurants they've opened, not just their nightclubs. They've designed these spaces to create exclusivity. They talked about the fact that, at least initially, they didn't even have reservations on Open Table and Resi because they wanted it to be hard to get into the restaurants. The harder it is to get into a restaurant, the more it's going to make somebody want to get into that restaurant. And I think this is such an interesting idea to play around with. Now, it's a little bit easier to do at that luxury fine dining level that Brian and John are operating in. Maybe less so. You can't really do this necessarily in QSR fast casual. But I think, again, the principle still matters. If you think about LTOs, if you think about, in stock until it's gone, come out and get it now while supplies last. It's the same principle, which is I can't have that thing. I can't easily have that thing. It's not very accessible to me. And that makes me want it all the more. I think this is something that a lot more restaurants can play around with, especially as it relates to experiences. That's what John and Brian are trying to do by creating unique experiences that are hard to get and that are not easily accessible, by the way, again, on social media. So they're all of the people who are in their businesses, all of those experiences, they don't want them all over social media because they want people to come in and experience them for themselves. So how can the scarcity principle work for your business? How can you limit the supply of a thing and in doing so, ratchet up that demand and make it so that people can't help but want to come in and check it out? My fourth takeaway is that the rise of AI will have a corresponding demand for real experiences. Brian said this later in the interview. This idea, and I totally agree with him, is that restaurants aren't going anywhere. A lot of industries are being disrupted right now by technology and especially AI. Some industries may even go away with the impact of AI. But in restaurants, it's not the case. Restaurants are going to be around forever. First off, people have to eat. But second off, as Brian said, restaurants provide an experience that is unique and human. And increasingly, we see this. We see as full service restaurants are kind of coming back from the brink, as fine dining businesses are having a little bit of a tailwind right now. The reason is because so many people are trying to get out of their house. They're trying to have these unique experiences that they can't get through DoorDash. They can't get through a drive-through window. And that, as Brian suggested, could grow even more as technology dominates all aspects of our lives. The more we engage with bots and AI, the more we're going to crave human experiences. And restaurants are so well positioned to provide that. Consider this as you scale your business, as you look for opportunities for growth. How can you have more of a human component? How can you adopt more experiences that offer that chance for your customers to be face to face, to have human connection, because they're going to want it more and more in this AI driven world? My fifth and final takeaway related to that is that little details make a big difference in restaurant experiences. So little details, like we've been talking about around human experiences, but also little details Brian and John talked about, just in terms of having live music in the restaurant and the type of song selections that they offer. Or I like this detail, which is in an Italian restaurant, they had a taco night. Or another detail at one of their restaurants, they had dice that the customers could roll. And if you got a certain number, your meal was free. These are all really unique ideas that they're including in their restaurants, but they're all memorable. They are things that the customers, you can guarantee, went to their friends and told them all about and made their friends want to go check it out for themselves. Those little details, all encompassing, as Brian, I think it was, who said, all the encompassing details, all of the sensory experiences make up this one night for your guest in your restaurant that can be hugely impactful in turning them into a loyalist. And again, going back to that word of mouth marketing, it's going to get them to go tell all of their family and friends to go check out your restaurant. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again and talk to you next week.